Ministers, you're no doubt aware the National Council for Special Education yesterday announced a 10% cut in support hours for children with special needs. Now, this brings the total, as I'm sure you're also aware, in cuts per child to 25% since 2010-2011. Now, the INTO said yesterday that the cuts are worse than this, that the Department of Education and the NCSE are hiding the true extent of the cuts from the parents. I think it's fair to say, Minister, that the needs of these children have not reduced by 25%. I'm reminded of a parent I met in Leinster House some time ago when we were trying to reverse the cuts to SNAs, and she told me that she was speaking to an official about trying to get support for her child, and the official asked her if her child was still autistic. Now, Minister, I've looked at the situation for Wicklow. In Wicklow, there are going to be nearly 400 hours cut at primary and post-primary level. Now, the figures on the need in Wicklow are not available, but we know that the need nationally is growing by 10%, and I've no reason to believe it's any different in Wicklow. Now, I know, as well as any of us in here, that money is tight, but it is being used for a variety of things. Hundreds of millions of euro in the same period have been used for pay increments in the public sector. We know that the HSE is buying drugs at several times the cost that the NHS is buying them. Now, Minister, it's not okay to force children with special needs in Ireland to pay for the sins of politicians and bankers. And so I'm calling on the government, and I am calling on Minister Quinn to immediately announce that the budget will be scaled up such that the resource hours are not cut. Thank you, Gaelic.
I'd like to thank the deputies for raising this issue. It gives me an opportunity to clarify the position in relation to this matter on behalf of Minister Rory Quinn. I should say, and I recognise the point made by Deputy Collins, but I am a Minister of State within the department, but I do acknowledge the point that she makes in relation to the Senior Minister. I just want to put onto the record of the House that this government has maintained the 1.3 billion annual funding for additional teaching resources and special needs assistance to support children with special educational needs at a time when there is a requirement to make expenditure savings across a range of areas. As the Taoiseach outlined to the House this morning, 2 out of every 5 adults working in our schools are solely dedicated to catering for the needs of children with special educational needs. We have absolutely no doubt about the value of the service that those staff provide and the value children and their parents derive from that service. But we're not in a position of being able to dramatically increase the number of special needs assistants or any other service, and I think everyone knows why. No one can doubt our commitment to special education. That is why this government has maintained the number of resource teachers and SNAs in the system since coming into office, despite enormous budgetary pressures in education and every other frontline service. That said, as a public representative myself, I am acutely aware of the concerns that have been expressed by parents and teachers in the media over the last 48 hours. We need to be clear in all debates, both in this House and elsewhere, about what these changes mean to ensure that we avoid creating any unnecessary distress or alarm. It is important to say that the provision for SNA support for the next school year will remain at exactly the same levels as the provision for the current school year. In their announcement, the National Council for Special Education pointed to an increase in demand for resource posts in the order of just over 10%. Deputies will be aware that children with learning support and special educational needs are supported through learning support provision and NCSE allocated resource teachers. In primary schools, learning support is provided through the general allocation model. Similar direct provision is made in post-primary schools. These supports have been maintained for this year. The year-on-year growth in the overall student population is approximately 1.3%, and this year the demand for additional teaching resources from the NCSE has grown by just over 10%. While the NCSE is not yet in a position to provide a clear analysis of the underlying reasons for the very large increases in demand this year, it is clear that some of this increased demand arises from the migration of students from learning support provision to NCSE allocated resource teacher support. While this has created a significant additional pressure on the resources available to the NCSE, it should also have reduced by equal measure the pressure on the learning support resources already allocated to schools. Schools are encouraged to make maximum use of their resource and learning support teaching allocations through groupings and pairing of children as appropriate to ensure that children do not lose out on teaching time. This is a vital point for parents to hear. An increase in the use of more collaborative, team-based approaches to teaching can ensure that no child will face any reduction in the amount of time spent with their resource teacher.
1 minute.
Thank you. Minister, I know you didn't make this decision, but it is very difficult to speak calmly and with parliamentary language about what is happening in the country. Minister, listening to what you just said, you wouldn't know that there was anything wrong. You said the government is maintaining funding. Let's at least do the children and the parents the decency of being honest about this. It's a cut. If you're one of the parents with a child of special needs, it's a cut of 25%. If you're one of the children with special needs, it's a cut of 25%. And if you're one of the kids or one of the parents of the kids in a class where there are kids with special needs, it's a cut of 25%. The social welfare bill goes up and down as people sign on and go back to work. If you reduce the total amount of social welfare support by half, because twice the number of people signed on, it would be a cut. Now, I don't believe that this is needed. I believe the money can be found in other places. I see other places that are less deserving of the support of their communities than children with special needs and their parents. So let's find the money, and let's please at least acknowledge what is happening to these parents and these children and call it what it is. Per child, it is a cut. Thank you.